and listening to Issues and Answers on the WCEG Talk Radio Network. WCEG stands for Worldwide Community Empowerment Group. I am your host, Norman A. Cotta Jr. Our goal is to enlighten your perspectives about our environment, our socio-political struggles, and those banes of classism and racism that make all of our lives more difficult than they should be. In so doing, what we hope is to bring us all together in a human tapestry of brotherhood and sisterhood, bound together by threads of understanding. Number one, respect and tolerance of our physical, racial, and religious differences. If you are currently watching, we thank you. Inform your neighbors, friends, and associates that we can be viewed live via YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and over streaming devices such as Roku. Our podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Amazon, Spotify, and Jal Saban, which is an Indian platform. I can't pronounce it correctly. All of our programs are archived on YouTube and can be viewed by anyone at any time. Before we go on, let me say, excuse me. I am getting over a cold. The throat's clogged. I know I sound like James Earl Jones sometimes, but voice is going to come back. Please understand that the topics and opinions on Issues and Answers are those of the host and my guest host, and not WCEG Network. So let's get moving on this installment of Issues and Answers. But first, excuse me, I'd like to send best wishes to Dr. Cassandra Wanzo, who is host of Mind Matters here on the WCEG Network. She has had an energetic battle with a few health issues over the past month. So I wish you continued healing. God bless you. Come on back strong for Mind Matters on WCEG Network. Now, our guest for today, I'm so happy to introduce, is Miss Valencia Stovall. She is candidate for Georgia's Senate seat for District number 34. She is also the other face of Issues and Answers on the WCEG Network. Welcome to Issues and Answers, my version.
Well, thank you so very much.
Excuse me. Wow, this is going to be fun. Now, for just those of you who don't know, a little bit of background: Georgia Senate is the upper chamber of the Georgia General Assembly. It sits alongside the Georgia House of Representatives, and it forms the Georgia legislature. And Ms. Stovall is not an amateur when it comes to elective office. Would I be correct?
That is correct.
I mean, you've been in the House, you were elected to the House of Representatives in 2012, correct?
Yes,
something like that?
Yeah.
So give us a little bit of background about your elected life. I'll put it that. Or your
well,
life.
First, thank you so very much, Dr. Carter, and I appreciate the opportunity to interview with you on Issues and Answers on the other side of Issues and Answers here with WCEG Talk Radio. And I have decided to become a candidate for Senate District 34 after a long time of prayer. A lot of people asking me to please consider to run for office again. This particular seat, the incumbent has decided to retire. And so now the seat becomes what's called an open seat. And so I served in the Georgia House of Representatives for 8 years, from 2012 to 2020. And at that time, of course, being able to co-author over a dozen bills that were actually signed into law, and that makes a difference. As a legislator, you can author all kind of bills, But the main important part is getting it to the finish line, which is the governor's desk, and then getting it signed into law. And actually, two bills that I did author myself were signed into law. One was dealing with video cameras in the classroom for special needs students, House Bill 614, and then also designating March the 21st as Single Parent Day in the state of Georgia, an official holiday, and that is House Resolution 279. But besides all of that, I'm a small business owner. I'm a mother of two, and like I always say, they're adults. So I don't know if you say two children, but they're adults now. Actually, my daughter is expecting any day now, so I'll be a new grandmother to add on to that whole list of things. I'm a community advocate, public speaker, and of course, the co-host or host of Issues and Answers with WCEG Radio. And so being taking into consideration all the experience that I have had in the community as a business owner, as a community advocate, and as a former legislator, actually puts me in the best position and the best qualified to be able to go to the upper chamber to be able to continue the work that we've already started in Clayton. But this time, I will have a new jurisdiction, which will be Fayette County. So it'll be Clayton and Fayette County, which makes up City District 34.
That's a big wow. I have to confess that last week I received an email from Larry Hanson. I don't know if you're familiar with him, from Georgia Municipal Association, in reference to House Resolutions 279. And even this, that was actually about a I guess it was a Zoom meeting
Right.
that I missed because I was at a funeral last week, but calling attention to House Resolution 279, which designates March 21st of every year, not as Valencia Stovall Day, but as Single Parents Day. So can you tell us a little bit about how that got started?
Yes. So they're the National Leadership Group up under the leadership of Beverly Brewster, who's the president, and Lenora Daniel, who's the vice president, and Miss Tom Macbeth, who's with Real Parents. They approached me in about 2016 about legislation to recognize single parents, the great job that single parents are doing across the state. And we started on that quest. What it is that President Ronald Reagan already had a proclamation that was signed into law designating March the 21st. But that was on a national level. And they said, hey, Representative, why don't we make it on the state level? And I think it's one other state that has done that besides Georgia. And so when House Resolution 279 was passed, it was the basis for it was to recognize the outstanding job that parents are doing, single parents, male and female, are doing here in the state of Georgia, and making sure that we have the resources appropriately for them to be able to make sure they're able to complete the journey of raising a student or a child who becomes a productive citizen of society. And so one of our goals for this year, we've been doing actually hosting down at the state capitol since 2019. So this year we have this will be our second year doing a 3-day celebration. So on March the 21st, if there are any single parents or you were a single parent, you still want to be celebrated, come down to the Georgia State Capitol. We'll start at 9 a.m. We'll be recognizing single parents. We'll be recognized in the House chamber. And I shout out to Representative Schofield, Kim Schofield, who has continued the part of the legislator since I'm no longer there. So she agreed to pick up the man who also was a single parent. And then we'll be meeting down at the state capitol. And then on this Thursday, on Friday, March the 22nd, we will be meeting at Golden Glide Skating Ring to have a family skate night. So we invite the single parents to bring the kids out for a skate night. And then on Saturday is our culminating event, which is our annual Georgia Single Parent Legacy Builders Recognition and Awards event. This is what we actually give to every single parent who was nominated, and we do a nomination process from October to December. Anybody across the state of Georgia can nominate a single parent, and then we look at those nominations. But everyone who's nominated actually receives an award. And there are some who've done a really outstanding job, and they receive a special award, and they also receive a House resolution with their name in it, recognizing them as being an outstanding parent. So because we haven't been able to get the word out, and most of the time when we talk to people, they don't have an idea that March the 21st is an official holiday. So we reached out to Georgia Municipal Association and asked them to allow us to do a presentation to the city officials, elected and appointed. And so that was the information that you received, and we were able to do that. It got really good feedback, because it's our hopes that each one of the cities and the counties across the state will actually do designate March the 21st in their city jurisdiction as Single Parent Day, place it on the calendar. So just like we have Grandparents' Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, we want to make sure that Single Parents' Day is recognized.
I'll do whatever I can to help that along.
Thank you.
My own little way. It's funny, and I remember speaking with you via WCEG before, and I think I was asking you at one point, why aren't you running? Why aren't you back in the game, so to speak? And recently, I was able to speak someone of statewide influence. We began speaking about not only you, but about your father, and how being public service is part of your DNA. So is it about salary?
Oh, definitely not about salary. You know that. So you got to call for extra. It's definitely not about salary. It's about making sure that the people who are in need get the services they need, and those who may not be in need still have a voice and a right to have an elected official. Because you never know when things happen. My dad, I grew up in Southeast Atlanta. My dad is a native Atlantan, what they call a Grady baby. Him and my mom both born at Grady. But my dad, we've watched him as little girls, my two sisters and I, do a lot when it came down to community service. It just like it came naturally. And for his service, we actually have, there's been a bridge actually dedicated to him. He's still alive. He's 83 years old. And if you're traveling north or south on 7585 at the University Avenue exit, you will see a big brown sign that says Love It Stovall Bridge. Well, that's my dad. Recognizing all the work that he's done in Southeast Atlanta. And so definitely not about the salary. It's about service and being a voice. And I've seen since the time I've been out of office, of course, there are issues that have come up. And me being able to have formed those past relationships with different other officials, I've been able to navigate through those systems. But still, there's been a stopping point. And unless you have someone there that has a bold voice and have leadership skills to know how to get all the way through those doors to bring back to our community what we're supposed to have. And a lot of times people don't know we're supposed to have. But that's the responsibility of good leadership, is informing the people. And then when the time comes and they need to be able to advocate for themselves, showing them the best way to be able to advocate to be able to get results done in their communities.
We often hear about the word calling, specifically when it comes to religious calling. And I know you had elective office before, and you were sort of out of it for a little while, but you were still involved in community service, public service projects. The calling to come back into elective office must have been awfully powerful. What made you want to, I would say, you still have a business interest, but to come out of being on the sidelines to being rallied back into the political sphere?
Yes, it was not an easy decision. It took months and months and months of praying and asking and seeking God's guidance to if this is what I'm supposed to do. Being have run for U.S. Senate in that jungle race back in 2020, then run again 2 years ago for the seat that late Congressman John Lewis held. And then now coming back and running again is a lot. And so I want to make sure that this time, not saying the other times were not, but I want a lot more clarity, uh, making sure that this was it. And like you said, I already still doing community work. We host a annual back to school block party. I started when I was elected, even when I left office, continued to host the back to school block party over in Clayton County, and to making sure that parents are connected to those resources that they need before school actually starts. And then we continue to host a teen summit. Actually, we have a teen summit coming up on this Saturday at Golden Glide Skating Rink from 11 to 2. And so working with Change for Hope and Dr. Deidre Poindexter on that project. And then, of course, this Georgia Single Parent event is another signature event that we have continued to do even after leaving office, because it's just that important. And so a lot of times when you're a public servant or you're an elected official, then yeah, you have those obligations. But then once you leave office, a lot of times you don't have those obligations. So it really has to be that you have a heart for serving the people to continue to do that in a volunteer capacity, to make sure that what you started is continuing, people are still being able to benefit from your experience, and then connecting people to resources.
One thing I found out is that even if you're out of elective office, people are still calling you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So you're still doing the work. Still doing the work. How many people are you competing against for Senate seat number 34?
So far, with the intent to run, there are 3 people. But what I tell everybody is that I only know about Stovall. That's all.
Stovall, that's all. Sounds
That's
good.
all.
And what will you bring to the table?
First of all, my main part is leadership matters. When you're looking at actually, the legislature being in session now, there are a lot of bills that are coming on the House and the Senate side. Many of them, of course, won't make it to the finish line. But having that leadership and experience makes a difference, especially in communities where there's a great need. And there are things that the citizens want to see happen. And beyond just being able to pass and introduce legislation, but building a good working relationship, which I've been able to do with Democrats and Republicans, because that's the only way you're going to get anything passed. If someone tells anyone you just got to, stick with one party, it doesn't work like that. They're just putting out fluff, to be very honest. So I've been able to not take away from my integrity of who I am and the people I represent, but knowing that some things you have to compromise with, not in a bad way, but you compromise to get what you need to get. And one of those times that I had to compromising, and it worked out best for the community I serve, was the issue with the jet fuel tax losses, sales tax that we were losing in Clayton County. And so I was able to negotiate, go in and speak with Governor Deal at that time, for him to be able to help us find a solution where it was a stopgap, it was a temporary, but it was $45 million that were brought back to Clayton County. And that's not an easy task to be able to get it accomplished, because you think about it, looking at the budget, everybody, all 159 counties, and then over 500 something cities, everybody has a need. And then you pull in all the other things with the different citizens, to be able to carve out that amount of money and set aside with, working with the other private entity, it's a huge feat. And it was very, very advantageous for us in Clayton County. Now we're still facing that. And that's one of the things I would definitely would be looking at doing, is going back and making sure that Clayton County receives its sales tax that is due to it as a jurisdiction. So that's one thing I'm dealing with on the education front, is making sure and using my voice and experience as being on the education committee prior, to make sure that every child that graduates from our high schools graduate with a trade. That's very, very important. And then whether they want to go post-secondary, to 4-year college, that's up to them. But at least they'll be able to take care of their families when they're coming out. So making sure that they're set up with job shadowing, apprenticeship programs, all of that. But once they graduate, they need to have a trade up under their belt. And then looking at my experience with small businesses, making sure that they have the sustainability that they need and support that they need, so that they can continue to hire the individuals in our community.
Wow. It's funny that you bring this up about children graduating and being able to get into a trade. I just spoke with a state representative from out in this area, Gwinnett County and part of Fayette. And oh gosh, I can't even pronounce his name. He's from Ghana. But he is sponsoring a similar bill, or wants to sponsor a very similar bill. And this speaks to something that's one of my passions, is that the educational system as structured doesn't really prepare our children to go out to the work world, especially here in Georgia. But let me say this. We talked about, I mentioned salary for running for elective office earlier. What the public probably doesn't realize is that Georgia has one of the lowest paid state legislatures in the country. Mm-hmm. So people going into ventures such as you're about to undertake do it at great sacrifice, but it's for the public good. I don't know whether that gets enough attention. I don't know whether that's talked about enough. I don't know what else to say about that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's up. It's about 17,000, maybe 100, 200, a year. And then of course, when you're in session, you get a little bit more, but it's usually no more, averaging out to no more than about 24,000 for the whole year. And although it's because we are considered to be part-time legislators, I've always said I haven't seen anything during my 8 years that was part-time, because people have issues, full-time issues. And so that does not make you a part-time legislator, even though we're in session only 40 days. The body's in session, and that's considered part-time. But those issues you're dealing with are year-round issues. Although you cannot legislate on them until session starts, that second Monday in January. But outside of that, you're building up for what that legislation should look like once January comes. So that means you're meeting with your constituents, you're meeting with your business owners, you're meeting with local officials that are up under your jurisdiction, and you're also meeting with potential investors or people that want to bring opportunities to your community. So you're always on the go with meeting and making sure that you are keeping abreast of what's going on and what's new that's coming in, and trying to work to get it to your community.
And I wish that WCEG could be the end all and be all for your campaign, but we know that is not true. And you can only campaign with public support. Mm-hmm. Public support means that mean green. So how can folks contribute to your campaign?
Definitely, they can go to my website, gostovall.com. That's GOSTOVALL.com. You can sign up to volunteer. You can also, of course, make your contribution because campaigns run off of gold while trains run off of coal. So you have to have the money that's needed to get the information out to the constituents. Like I said earlier, I represented Morrow, Lake City, Forest Park, College Park, and Riverdale previously for 8 years. But this particular district now extends to a greater part of Riverdale, including all those cities, but a greater part, and also down into Jonesboro, and then leading down into Fayette County, North Fayette County. So there are some people that don't know that Stovall exists. They don't know about the work that we've done and been able to accomplish. So it's imperative that we are able to get the word out to those voters for the May 21st primary. That's the election day. And of course, early voting always start prior to that. So we want to make sure that we're able to get the word out to those voters so that they will know that Stovall is the best qualified candidate that's going to be that's running, that has already put in her intent to run for this particular office. So go to gostovall.com. You can follow me on social media handles. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn as well. At Valencia Stovall.
Man, I tell you, being active on social media, I found is almost essential these days. But definitely, and you know what, folks, the voice of experience here, all of that costs money. That little sign you see behind candidate Stovall, that costs money. And good people, many times are not able to win the offices or become or get into elective office because they don't have the financial support behind it. It's essential. It's essential. Another thing that's essential is exercising your right to vote. This is a presidential election year, so we expect voter turnout to be heavier than normal than a non-presidential election year.
Right.
But how is the turnout usually in your
It's on the average of probably it's less than 20% on the average, or if it may depends. Like you said, this is a presidential election, but because right now we don't know if we'll have a Democratic primary candidate on the ballot. So this is the primaries are what's called the partisan votes. So you have the Democrat and you have the Republicans right now. So people who are gonna get a Republican ballot will pull a Republican ballot. Those who want to vote Democrat will pull a Democratic ballot for the primary. And so because right now there has not been a declared whether it's going to be a presidential primary for the Democrats, you might not have as many people that'll come out as they will in November, which is the general election. And so, and then we don't have another major candidate statewide that's going to be on the ballot as well. You have your local judges, of course, and school board, some school board races, but not enough on the higher levels to be able to bring them out. Well, you do have the congressional seats that are up for election as well. So, that may pull in some voters as well. So, but it's usually not a large turnout. And that's just kind of on average when it comes down to the primary elections.
I just find it strange, and what this area is considered the seat of the civil rights movement and so many other positive movements, and voter turnout is pathetically low. And you have 20% of the people at best determining policies and leadership for 100% of the population. And then people complain. And votes matter. Votes matter, people. If you look at what's going on in Fulton County with District Attorney Fannie Willis, and what's going on up in Coffee County,
right?
Votes matter. And I will say that, just adding here, that April 1st is the first day voters can request an absentee ballot for the Georgia primary. April 1st is the first day voters can request an absentee ballot for the Georgia primary. Why is that important? Because you have a tremendous amount of, I hate to say it this way, but GOP legislators who want to take that away from you, the ability to vote by absentee ballot. So, folks, register, get registered. And after you register, vote smart. Don't vote just from your heart. Vote, use your noodle. You have people who are qualified. Excuse me. I'd like to go back over some of your initiatives in the past, and I don't want to belittle it, but how important you've always taken education of our young people for your. We didn't talk about it too much. Your participation in PTA meetings over the years in a leadership position. And I think that began your political leadership, if that could be correct. Maybe.
I would say out front in front of other people, yes. But
Okay.
kind of watching and traveling with my dad was watching how actual politics works in the community. He was responsible for many about the first all the mayors except for the last two mayors. He had and one other, so three other mayors that have been currently mayors in Atlanta. He has had some type of influence in those elections, and many of the state representatives and state senators, some of whom I served with when I went down to the Capitol. And I remember campaigning for some of them. I don't know what that means, but I remember, campaigning or either doing, we had a promotional printing business. And so we did a lot of the t-shirts, campaign paraphernalia for many of them that are actually sitting down there now. So yes, being involved in PTA actually was a springboard for me to be able to get in front of the audience, in front of people, and learning how to, with continuing the structure of running a meeting. But before, even with PTA, my dad was the neighborhood planning unit of Y. So that was an organization that was started by the late Mayor Manny Jackson in Atlanta that allows the community to have a voice about what's the development going to happen in their community. And so my dad was the chair, and I would follow him to the meetings. And so one day, the membership body asked, well, Stovall, I want your daughter to be elected for being the secretary. And I was about maybe 18 at that time. And I was like, I don't know what no secretary does. And they said, oh, yeah, you just take the minutes for the meeting. And I said, you just write down and just do a summary. I said, okay. Now, mind you, I never was secretary. So I wrote down everything that they said, everything. If anybody's ever been in some of those meetings, you don't write down everything they say because they
You're
talk
right.
about all kind of people and stuff and saying stuff. So when I go to the next meeting, the next month's meeting, I'm passing out all the minutes. I don't type them up. They start reading them. They say, "Oh no, Stovall, we got to table these minutes." And she has to go back and change these minutes. So so I got early on about how it works when it comes down to politics, how it works when the community's voices are actually heard and respected, and then being able to take that into my position as president, PTA president, vice president, been treasurer, secretary, and then on the Atlanta Council level, being treasurer and secretary, and then getting a chance to even speak on advocacy at one of in about 2 years ago at the state PTA conference, and I talked about advocacy, and one of the topics was dealing with health. So all of those provided opportunities to be able to help me in my leadership role when I actually began to serve at the state legislature.
You mentioned something earlier about Governor Nathan Deal, and you are running on a Democratic ticket, and you were a Democratic representative, Democratic state Senate, but it's documented. I have it documented here that not just your saying it, but your ability to work across the aisle, so to speak. Excuse me. Compromising to get things done. And that seems to be something that is not done today and that we need more of? Will you continue to bring that to as part of uh, your leadership qualities that you'll be bringing to the Senate seat 34?
Most definitely, it's essential, and not just as passing with legislation, but even dealing, like I said, with the jet fuel tax, even being leading the efforts to bring Atlanta Technical College a satellite location to Clayton County on Highway 85. So that none of those things had to do with my legislative duty as far as passing and introducing bills, but that all of those dealt with building a relationship with those that are not of the same party, because there are some things we can agree on and some things we probably never agree on. So I always work from the angle is, let me find something we can agree on. One, have been in education, dealing with education, and then I work it from that angle. And it turned out to be very good for me and for the community that I serve, because I was able to do those all those other different things that I was able to do with making sure that my community was represented well, and having that reputation that, even I just went back down to the Capitol on last week for a rally dealing with the barber and beauty industry. I was down there helping support them. And then later on that week, back at the Capitol again for Black Male Educators Day, which is one initiative. I actually was the first legislator to even have a day down there for Black male educators, working with Jason Allen. And so to see that still going on 5 years, later, that means something. That says something about leadership qualities. And so, but only way you can get all those things accomplished is that you have to be able to work with other people that you don't necessarily agree with on issues all the time. And I usually let them know, this I can go with now, this I can't, or hey, let's talk about this part, because I was the type of legislator, still am the type of person. I want to get a clear understanding as to why you're introducing this bill. What's behind the bill? What's the real reason and purpose of it? Then once I understand, what's behind it, then I know, okay, who I need to go ask additional questions to. And I've been able to, like I said, had a good working relationship with working across the aisle, but not compromising what my beliefs and morals are when it comes down to legislation. And if I voted for it, I believed in it. And then if there was something that comes up, and sometimes it does, they say, well, hey, you might have voted like that. They changed the bill later on, and now it's like this. Then I have to change my stance on it. But I always let my constituents know whatever my stance was, how I voted. I stayed in constant communication with my constituents so they could never say they didn't know what I was doing at the state capitol.
Well, for Senate District 34, what do you perceive to be the three biggest challenges that you would champion from day one in your successful campaign?
All right. So there are three areas of my platform that keep everything pretty much simple. It's the book, and the ballot. The book is dealing with economic regeneration. So looking at our small business, seeing how we can help sustain those that have been able to survive post COVID, because there's still a lot of them that are struggling. So that falls into economic regeneration with the book. And then with the ballot, voter empowerment, but making sure that that the voices are heard, other people, and that those opportunities that we have in the different state level governments for government efficiency, because we have a lot of underutilized type of programs that that are being funded in our state agencies, and that's dealing with housing, that's dealing with our special needs community, that's also dealing with single parents and senior citizens. And the third one is dealing with the book, which is reimagining education. So when you talk about all of those are the kind of three areas that I'll be touching on, and with education, we want to make sure it's equitable and student centered. And I think that because of how our student formula is set up in our school system, it's not equitable to every child on the level of education that they need to be learning on. And so working in those areas and those fields to making sure that it's equity and student centered with everything that we do in the state of Georgia when it comes to education.
Wow, that plays right into my next question, because we have a a voting electorate out there that is consistently ignored today, which is not the way it was when I was young. But our youth, our high school graduates, young college students, our high school, many of your high school graduates are going to be eligible to vote in November. And some of them are able to register even at I think in registrations ends in May, could be. Not in May, but April, March.
Yeah.
So is there any plan to outreach to the younger people?
Yes, most definitely. You can't leave them out. That they're our future. And so we definitely have plans. We already have some young people that are on board. I served as a substitute teacher. One of the school districts, one of the schools I substituted in was Seven Pillars Career Academy. And with that, being able to share and bring those students down to the state capitol on different occasions, and then being able to form a good bond. So we have middle school, high school, and then also we have young adults, that we're bringing on board to be able to even help shape some of the platforms that I'm working on as far as my campaign, because we want to make sure that we're always staying relevant and being able to be able to touch not just our seniors, but all the way down to seasoned adults, to our young adults, to our teenagers, all the way down to the babies, and making sure that they have quality with child care services that they need for them for early development, so that once they get down to that extended pipeline, that we're not looking at over almost 40-something% of our third graders not reading on level. Well, it starts early on, and we have to start at the front end of that pipeline and then work our way up. But at the same time, you have to also start where the kids are right now, to making sure by the time they do graduate, they can graduate with a trade because they're able to read, write, and do some arithmetic. And so those are the things how we're incorporating them in. We're incorporating other segments of different industries in as well, to make sure that we're covering all what they say the needs are, not just what I think the needs are, but making sure we're reaching out to them.
And you bring up something that, of course, sort of what makes me think about healthcare, which is a big thing here in Georgia, when we've had a governor who has resisted $30 million per year in Medicaid funding. How do we change that?
Well, it goes back to the people. Unfortunately, with the whole Medicaid situation, most recently, because there was a change in the federal mandate for recertifying individuals who are currently on Medicaid. So during the COVID-19, there was a federal mandate that said that everyone that was receiving insurance could not be taken off of Medicaid, no matter what the situation was. But now we're finished with COVID. And so the federal government had a mandate where they had to go in that the states had to go in and recertify everyone that was receiving Medicaid at that time. So you had to recertify to make sure they're still eligible. Well, a lot of people fell through the crack. Almost 2.5 over 500,000 people were removed from Medicaid roll that no longer have insurance. And so the state sent a letter to the governor saying, what are you all going to do? How are you going to handle this? And so, of course, they've been back and forth. There's been some money allocated, about $54 million allocated out of the federal money to be able to make sure people are re-enrolled. But many of those people were children and seniors that were kicked out for no reason. They should have just been re-enrolled back. I'll give you one example quickly. Usually what the state was doing was actually determining certification based on household instead of person to person. So say for instance, you were in the household and your child was receiving Medicaid. You weren't, but your child was eligible for Medicaid. When they looked at the reviewing process or recertifying process, they just looked at you and your income and then take into consideration that there was a child that was there that was already certified and qualified for Medicaid. So they removed them off the roll. Now, those parents didn't even know that they were off. Now, your child gets sick. We're in a bad cold season. They get sick, take the child to the doctor, and guess what the doctor telling them? We cannot see your child because you don't have insurance. And the parents said, yes, I do. Their child is on peach care. They said, no, you've been removed. You don't have an insurance. So now you have a parent stuck with a sick child, don't know what to do. They got to go to work. The child needs to be in school. So where does that leave that parent? And then you had those who are special needs and individuals, adults that have disabilities that depend on that Medicaid services. And then when you think about senior citizens, some that had a Medicare and Medicaid. So their Medicaid portion was cut, which affected them being able to get services, which connects to Medicare and Medicaid together. So they might not have been able to get their medicine and a whole lot of other things. So it's just been very, very crazy with how it was handled. And so when it comes to that, you have to have people that are, like I said, leadership matters, that can see what, hey, this is a problem. This is what we need to work to fix it. We don't need to say, yes, a problem, and we leave people out there to not have insurance because they need insurance. Yeah, you had a federal exchange, and I agree with you that the state should have been included, should have went ahead early on and got on the exchange and been able to receive those federal dollars that would have came down each year, and at least up until the time that the state could kind of equal out. And of course, the governor did come up with an alternative plan. But then when you add all these other restrictions on too, being able to qualify for it, it really ends up being that as many people that's supposed to be getting enrolled in the program didn't even get enrolled in it. So people still don't have insurance. And Dr. Carter, when you have a community that's uninsured or underinsured, that affects the workforce and economics for that community. Because if a parent is sick, they can't go to work. If a child is sick, the child can't go to school. And if you're sick and you want a good quality of life, guess what? You can't travel and go enjoy a quality of life because you're sick. You need insurance. And this should not be a conversation we have to continue to debate, coming even from the federal level. It should be like in other countries. Everybody should have insurance. You just go to the doctor. This is what's wrong with me. And it shouldn't be that these people can afford it and these people can't. Why is that like that in America, period?
Oh, yeah, they call that socialism. But which is
But
a whole
it affects the economics. So you can
well,
say it's socialist, but it affects the economics when you're not able to have a good production with companies.
well, the problem with that frame of thinking is we can go back to COVID-19. This was God's message to all of us that you cannot ignore health care for poor people who get sick, because those poor people can make some of your rich people sick and die. So it has to be something that we have to look at universally. And I have a tape in my closet from President George Bush talking about universal health care. Republican president, Republican president. When Obama came out with it and Hillary Clinton came out, it became a bad word.
Right.
Darn shame. Darn shame. We're getting close to the end of the program here. So uh, I find it amusing. There are two people in this world who call me doctor. One of them happens to be the Honorable Valencia Stovall. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not have my doctorate yet, but I appreciate it.
Well, I put it like this: you should be an honorary doctorate until you have the other part. I mean, they give out honorary doctors to some people. I'm like, how in the world they get an honorary doctor? What do they do?
Yeah.
So I stand corrected.
No, it's okay.
Mr. Carter.
I'm going to wear it proudly. But anyway, as we get down to the almost the home portion, before I get into my rant, I would just like to give you an opportunity to speak to the voters from your heart.
Thank you. So I appreciate the opportunity again, Mr. Carter, host Carter, and WCEG for this opportunity. And this election is all about leadership. It's about who has the experience to be able to go to the state capitol and not have to start day one trying to figure out where the bathroom is located and what time the session end, what time the session start. How do I introduce a bill? What does the clerk's office, where is it located? What does the clerk's office do? You need someone that already has gone through the first trial basis of that, in which I have done for 8 years. And not only have I been elected for 8 years, but I also was very effective. So you need someone who has leadership skills, because leadership matters. Someone who's going to be bold and accessible. I was always accessible to my constituents. Whether we agree or not, they could always contact me. And so when you cast your vote on May 21st, if you live in the jurisdiction of Senate District 34, which takes in portions of Forest Park, College Park, Riverdale, small portion of Lake City, Morrow, and Jonesboro, and going down towards a little part of the Panhandle and into North Fayette County, North Fayetteville. Definitely consider Stovall as your candidate. You need someone that has leadership skills, that has proven that they can bring and produce and bring back what's needed into our community. And so go to gostovall.com. You can find out more information about what I have accomplished over the years and what I plan on fighting for that matters to you. I'm a regular person just like you, have gone through situations just like you. So I definitely understand the plight that you're going through. But I understand also that leadership matters. Thank you.
Well, I tell you, I'm looking forward to everyone going to ghostovall.com, sending in your contribution, no matter how small. It's all appreciated, because by the beginning of April, I want to see a commercial on TV going, "Go Stovall, that's all." And get you in there. Get you in there. I thank you so much. I thank you so much. I look forward to doing this again with you sometime before the election. As things go on, you're so informative. Uh, not just because you're talking about running, but you have a track record. And a lot of folks running for office don't have that track record. They don't have that seasoning. You had a lifetime of seasoning, and I'm looking forward to seeing you up there in the dome, under the dome. So thank you so much for joining us, Honorable Valencia Stovall, candidate for District 34 of our Georgia Senate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, excuse my throat here. This month is filled with special days. George Washington's birthday, Abraham Lincoln's birthday, which we combine to President's Day. We have Groundhog Day, Valentine's Day, and this year, Leap Day on February 29th. But for those of us of African American heritage, this month is noted as Black History Month. Now, when I was a child, we only had Black History Week. And for those of you who don't know, Black History Month is an annual celebration of achievements by African Americans and a time for recognizing their central role in U.S. history. Also known as African American History Month, the event grew out of Negro History Week, which I remember accurately. It was the brainchild of noted historian Carter G. Woodson and other prominent African Americans. Now, since 1976, every U.S. president has officially designated the month of February as Black History Month. President Gerald Ford, a Republican, officially recognized Black History Month in 1976, calling upon the public to, quote, seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. Now, this commentary grew out of a Facebook posting last week. And the Facebook posting began with, it was something on the order of talking about the Super Bowl, which we just had yesterday, begging for people to just sing the national anthem without all the vocal theatrics. And I agree. Now it's gotten to be crazy. Everybody wants to sound like an opera diva or something singing that song. And I agreed with that. But later on, someone posted, and why are we singing the Negro national anthem? There's no such thing as the Negro national anthem. And of course, I had to get on my soapbox after that, because that song, known as the Negro National Anthem, popularly, but which was originally written with the title "Lift Every Voice and Sing," is a hymn with lyrics by James Weldon Johnson. And his brother wrote the music, J. Rosamond Johnson. It was written from the context of African Americans in the late 19th century. Think about that. Written from the context of African Americans in the late 19th century. The hymn is a prayer of thanksgiving to God, as well as a prayer for faithfulness and freedom, with imagery that evokes the biblical exodus from slavery to the freedom of the promised land. Ladies and gentlemen, think about this. Lift Every Voice and Sing was written as a song of hope for the American dream, written by people who knew slavery up close and personal. Even with that, they bought into the American dream. Think about that. Think about these words. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Think about that. That's faith. That's hope. Now, let me jump to the last verse, which you hardly ever hear sung, which to me is the most important verse of the song. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand. True to our God, true to our native land. The native land they were speaking of, ladies and gentlemen, were these United States of America. They weren't talking about Africa. They weren't talking about Haiti. They were talking about true to our native land, the United States of America, where all of these people were born. I bring your attention to that song we call the national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner. Let's go to the third verse, also hardly ever sung. And where is that band who so vauntedly swore that the havoc of war and the battle's confusion, a home and a country, should leave us no more? Their blood has washed out their foul footsteps pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave. I'm going to stop there. No refuge could save the hireling and slave. This was written under the context that people who had been enslaved by these United States of America were given a promise by the British that if you help us defeat America, we will give you freedom. Wouldn't you have taken that chance? Wouldn't you? But you see, which song is more patriotic through and through to America? Lift Every Voice and Sing, or the Star Spangled Banner, which actively denigrates slaves and criticize them for wanting to be free? So those of you who at the Super Bowl sat down when the Negro National Anthem was sung, you need to look at yourselves. You need to look at your hearts and tell us about your idea of what patriotism really, really looks like. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to WCEG. I apologize for this throat ailment I have here. I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks right here on WCEG Issues and Answers. This is Norman A. Carter Jr. signing off. Peace out.